You claim to desire love, but tell me honestly, do you truly want love, or is it to feel selected by someone? As there is a substantial, the distinction between desiring to and loving be adored by the majority of those who claim to seek. In reality, people in love are desperate for approval. They're looking for an outsider to demonstrate what they are unable to maintain on their possess, their own value and desire to be noticed, admired and sought, not because it enhances the relationship, but because it stops the screaming insecurity. Eric from the artwork inside their chest of love got right to the heart of things. Seek to be rather than to adore. Loved because it appears easier to be loved. It takes work to love more comfortably. Discipline. Being loved and committed seems like a blessing that resolves I am everything if someone loves me. More significant than I merit exist, and the illusion begins here, starts with a desire for the thing rather than love. Sense like you are at last sufficient, that someone gave you a glance and remarked, the way they look or touch you says you are worth it. Because you secretly don't think that your need for love on your own is not about filling. It's about sharing an emptiness inside that nobody can see, except when you have a daily emptiness that could have begun in childhood, possibly with rejection, desertion, or just plain never been instructed to regard oneself as someone deserving of affection without needing to. You grew up by proving anything to anyone, feeling that you must be selected to have worth that you must possess in order to be desired, pertinent, and each time a person makes a decision, for a split second, you sense that everything is fine except for the void, has vanished, but it always reappears. Isn't it referred to as this immature love, the kind of love that emerges from the necessity and urgency of merging with someone, since you can't bear being alone yourself is not a wish. Rather, its dependency is not the same as connection. The worst aspect is emotional addiction. This is fed by the culture in which we live. Instructs you to find someone to save you someone must complete you, to give your life purpose. But that is a falsehood marketed as genuine affection. Does not occur when you are chosen by someone. It can only emerge when you pause. Needing to be selected if you've succeeded so far, it's because, in a way, you get the impression that there is a problem with the way you relate and feel, that you possess something that's still awaiting someone's validation from the outside, and you can be worn out, fed up with pleading for attention and attempting to be what other people want, of holding on to even the smallest indication of love, as though it were your only thing. But one thing I want to say about this video is it's to wake you up, not to console you. Since long as you're not able to see the source of your void, you'll keep going to refer to dependency and neediness as love. Link, which will only lead to your demise. From within the love problem, most individuals recognize the issue with love, mainly as the question of love instead of the problem of liking or becoming able to embrace Eric from the craft of appreciating. This sentence shouldn't be limited to read it slowly and digest it, due to the fact that it displays an emotional distortion that predominates in practically all in contemporary relationships. The notion that love is something to be obtained instead of something to provide, and that something it's exactly this inversion that changes what need to be mutually beneficial experience into a last-ditch effort to find validation Have you observed how and when considering love what happens to the most individuals think? Will someone select me? Am I intriguing enough? Deserving of being loved? These are valid inquiries because they show an entirely external. In this situation, love turns into a type of reward and the individual a product, attempting to be sufficiently attractive to merit that reward. For pointing out surgery accuracy of this misunderstanding, being loved is the passive aspect of love is acting as the object of affection for many people means being sought after, and that's where the issue. We mistake love for want, conflate being cared for with being seen. Because desire is strong, but it's unstable, capable of igniting in a single second and vanish at the next moment. And if your sense, when value is predicated on being sought after, then you are held captive by the eyes of the other. Your sense of self-worth turns into a leaf in one quiet, one rejection, and the wind, if you say no, everything falls apart. Inside, he says, but from goes even deeper, that this fixation on receiving love has origins in the way we organize our emotional begins at a young age. He says most people want love, but there is hardly anyone can genuinely fall in love, because to genuinely love someone, you need something. That almost nobody wants to confront emotional development. To love, one must put oneself aside, examining the other with accountability, with purpose, rather than as someone who will finish you, but as someone who you would like to express your completeness. And we are too busy to do that often, attempting to gain attention by demonstrating, with each like and each reply, with every show of concern, that we merit anything, that we are worthy of something. About this disconnect between affection and being loved makes you brittle and nervous. Relationships that are intense in the beginning and destroying connections in the end, where two people meet, not to construct something, yet to take something away from what they believe is lacking in one another. It is not love inside oneself. It is a silent pact that offers an emotional deal, the sense that I am valuable and that I would provide you with anything you desire in return. But the invoice is always due, and ultimately nothingness remains. Once more, but what precisely are we attempting to brimming with this need for love? What is this gap within of us that causes us to able to absorb any compassion that appears authentic? The solution to this is found in the main concept that comes from and will be the next section's emphasis is on the neurotic urge. Fusion's addiction to emotion finished with the other and the cost paid for. Let's move on. If this material is, click the subscribe button if it makes sense to you. Click and sign up for the channel. I appreciate your fusion's necessity. There is a harsh contrast and support between needing someone and loving them someone. Although the majority of those who claim to be in pursuit of love are literally going hungry for something far more archaic, verification. The goal is to connect. Not to feeling worthy is not the same as sharing one's essentially. It is to be selected as a means of satisfy the gap inside that has never been directly confronted. And this is where Eric's theory turns into not just pertinent but essential. From speaking of, he refers to this as a neurotic urge, for he described fusion as the greatest longing is for the desire rather than a sexual partnership. For fusion, in order to overcome separation, to get out of the jail of the do you recognize the significance of this is what happens when you pursue someone to be. You are not love, even though you are loved. Searching for it is fusion. It is the transient alleviation of your interior disarray. You wish to go away from yourself. Desire someone to cling to you strongly, symbolically, physically, and emotionally, that for a brief moment you vanish so that the voice within the insecurity causes the head to fall mute. Eliminates the anxiety of not being enough, of being ignored and alone. Disappears, but this is impossible since nobody will provide you within a long-term sense. No human will always be burdened with demonstrating, tells you that you are not. Valuable connection will mend a wound that is as long as you insist on it, and yours the delusion that is being selected makes you into the whole version of yourself. Will fluctuate between euphoria and the breakdown between. Idealization and frustration will occur between now and once more. It didn't work from what made it evident that this kind of mutually beneficial union is a regressive sort of love, not love. Dependence-based relationship rather than, he writes, about freedom in a symbiotic love. Two individuals merge into one, but neither is a union that continues to exist as an individual, without integrity. And the reason this is the trap is what you think of as deep love can actually be a disguised dependency. Possibly what you perceive as overwhelming passion is actually an addiction to the sense of importance. It's like an emotional drug to someone. When someone else chooses you, you feel alive. When they take you away, disintegrate this desire to be selected, as it does not begin with profound roots. Relationships in adulthood and frustrations that begin somewhat earlier than starts in our early years, as we were viewed or not by individuals who were intended to show us how to love ourselves, which explains why we are referring to the pursuit of love as an unintentional recurrence of a previous discomfort and effort to accomplish what we were unable to do this first, to experience love without conditions. And this loop doesn't end unless you acknowledge that your suffering is not it is in the past now. The echoes of the past are what pain now. Unsettled at the time, and to comprehend for this, we must examine where this came from. We must descend to the emotional level. The wounded child is the source of the issue. It remains within you, requesting a choked voice of love, and this is precisely what we'll discuss in the following section. The child who was hurt. Ever pondered why, even after so many for a long time, some relationships continue to fail? You act as though you're 5 years old. Why do you cling so fast and firmly to people who pay even the smallest amount of attention to you? What makes you think that the entire planet is falling when someone withdraws or just stops replying? It's not hyperbole. It's you have a child inside of you, not drama, softly yelling for something that never got Eric from and doesn't utilize the phrase inner child straight into the craft of affectionate. But the whole emotional, the structure he outlines is precisely that the development of our love originates from our early years and how we were adored, viewed, or disregarded. He claims experiencing separation causes anxiety as the strongest emotion by far, source of human suffering, and it was throughout childhood that the manifestation of separating experience is most cruelty. The infant is born entirely. It must be fed and protected since it is reliant, touched, verified, and most importantly, It needs to experience emotional security. When this doesn't occur, the love received is absent and conditionally unstable or deceptive. An invisible injury is developed, and this wound remains over time. It simply blends in with adulthood, disguises impulsive self-sufficiency. Relationships must always be wanting. Crushing rejection anxiety article discusses how many adults look for in partnerships a symbolic return to the womb, to the secure condition and complete fusion, which he claims that evolution is not regression. In Thai, adore you in a foolish way because I am cherished in my mature shape, because I adore the innocent kind of love remains within you while you look for someone to love you in order for you to feel whole. This reasoning is very sentimental and not logical. The wounded child within you discovered that in order to be liked, it had to please. It has to be beneficial, to be unobtrusive. And now, as an adult, you keep attempting to earn love, attempting to blend in and be sufficient for someone to remain. But the issue wasn't ever that you weren't deserving of love. The issue was that you discovered you needed to make an effort to possess it, and this influenced your entire perspective of love. It influenced how you compassionate, selfless, and protective. What you refer to as love is frequently, this child is only replicating old habits. If I'm flawless, they won't leave me. If I hope they'll pick me if I am, they will love me, and this cycle, if I need them, is unkind, since regardless of how much you give, as much as you receive, nothing will suffice if you nullify yourself. To quiet the child's suffering that still feels that one must earn love, and so long as you disregard this aspect of yourself, you'll keep drawing in partnerships that merely serve to validate these connections with wounds that don't heal, only reinforce. But there's a therapeutic solution. Does not originate externally, but rather not originate from the subsequent partnership. The next promise, next attention grabber, when you eventually take a look at this youngster, not with condemnation, but with compassion. Once you cease requiring that others look after, what's your accountability? And this is where we go down the emotional journey: maturation, the route to genuine love. In the following section, we will discuss what this actually means, the definition of mature love as stated by how to begin and why it is so uncommon to cultivate it inside of you, even after attempting to fill it for so long. From the significance of mature love being outside is really one of the most difficult jobs in human life. It isn't coincidental that the majority of people fail terribly when attempting, as love is. It is not desire to fall in love. Isn't attached. As Eric reminds us, love is an act of bravery and deliberate choice of emotional control. And that's precisely what the reason it is so uncommon is, that it needs to be complete before contacting the love is a term that other people don't mince. An action rather than a passive. Love is a constant standing up rather than an abrupt, generally falling into the active character. One way to characterize love is to remark that above all, love is giving rather than receiving. This remark serves as a reality check, since it obliterates one of the most pervasive delusions of modern society that views love as something that it just so happens that it is an involuntarily magical experience, lovely accident. However, according to them, love is an activity, routine, and unwavering dedication. It is a decision that is made daily, Even when enthusiasm wanes, even when life is burdensome, others fail. And this particular feature reveals how most people aren't ready to love you, cannot provide what you haven't constructed inside of you from explains the human. Love is that of separation in existence. The solution to this issue, but only those who have moved past the distance. They are capable of genuinely loving, in other words, provided that you are internally divided. You'll utilize the other as a patch, which will cause confusion. Presence with salvation, you'll consider that it's sufficient to be with someone, when actually loving someone means being with them, even when it would be simpler to run away, and you can only do this if you have already fixed the most challenging disagreement in your relationship with being present is necessary for self-love. Presence is necessary maturity. Most partnerships don't end because of the lack of emotion, but because of lack of emotional organization. Those who mistake love for attention, connection, neediness, and devotion to letting go of the belief that love is an art, and it takes learning just like any other art. Discipline of patience, and possibly the most crucially, he writes with humility, anyone who wants to master the art of love must begin in the same manner as one begins to practice will help you learn any other art. Discipline, focus, and patience. But how many people are actually prepared to how many are willing to stop in order to do this? Eating love like it was a shelf product that is prepared for use and disposal. To love is to go against the grain stream of the present culture, in opposition to the exaggerated ego, in opposition to the dread of to be vulnerable and experience true love. One must the guts to reveal one's emotions without any assurance that the other will follow suit and continue to adore this. The moment when love stops being a romantic fantasies and turns into an internal revolution, when you no longer wish to be saved you, and begin acting as someone who you may construct, once you cease pleading for love and begin making the decision to love clearly and consciously. When you don't love, act responsibly because due of your want, but because you must. In order for this to occur, it is required that see and leave behind one of the best. Our period's emotional traps include the infantilization of affection encouraged by in contemporary culture, the notion that love is to be selected in order to blend in and that the other exists to satisfy our in. The following section we shall analyze voids our shared imagination and demonstrate why it keeps a lot of people from leading the actual love is what you're experiencing right now. Speaks to your deepest suffering. My Beyond the Shadow, an ebook, will transport you. It delves even more into the core concepts of Jung and gives you useful resources to comprehend your emotional tendencies and start to recover. The link is located in the interior of the pinned The Issue with Love remark. Our culture is one that packaging as a product that is simple to consume, discard, and enjoy the seduction of initial impression and shallow content, Hollywood romantic tunes for social media. All of it is repetitive, pleasant, and dangerously misleading statement that love is to look for someone who makes you whole, a person who brings you joy, someone who fills your gaps with love and presence and assurances. But that isn't love. Poetry camouflaged as emotional dependence. Eric was aware of this well before he writes in the age of algorithms. In contemporary, most people in the culture think that love is easy, and the challenging aspect is locating the ideal item to adore or to be adored. By this conviction stems from the shallow notion that it's simple to love anything, and here is where people fall into the trap. Desire to learn how to love, yet they're unwilling to be adored with ease, and want to live passionate relationships without needing to search. They aspire to be desired within without pondering why they desire the using someone else as a mirror to validate their own romanticized portrayal, rather than as an actual interaction between two flawed people. Is the infantilization of affection. Starts there as soon as we turn the connection into a realm of fantasy where the other is there to protect us from. This is condemned by us as our society has structural flaws, and we are conditioned to love, but are not taught to desire. For rank, beauty, and the satisfaction of being approved, and we display everything on the we want someone to demonstrate this to us, that we are unique in order to remove us from doubt about loneliness, lack of confidence. But that is not love. It is a look for a loving father, for a providing a loving mother, for someone to adopt the duty that ought to fall on us. Additionally, he notes that in immature love, the other person is viewed as a consumption of emotions, something that must put forth effort for me to feel well and be here. Is the most awkward thing. You might be connected